I was pleasantly surprised when Vani called me about 2 months back and said that please come and speak here. We're trying to get Ravi Shankar Prasad, the IT minister, to come and speak, but you be it. If he's not able to make it, you please be a substitute speaker. So since Ratan Tata has not made it, I'm like a substitute speaker for today. But in many ways, I'm like Einstein's driver. Einstein had just won the Nobel Prize and he was going from place to place giving speeches. He'd given over almost 300 speeches. And then he was invited by the University of Columbia to speak, and nobody had seen him in America. So his driver used to accompany him everywhere. And his driver said, Mr. Einstein, I've heard you 300 times. I can give a better speech than what you can ever give. And so they went to Columbia, and Einstein took his challenge, and his driver went and gave a brilliant lecture. It was a fabulous lecture, flawless, brilliant. But then the dean after that said that, ladies and gentlemen, now we'll have a question-answer session. And he picked on the brightest student there to ask him a really tough, very complex, very difficult question. This driver said, young man, your question is so simple, so easy, that even my driver sitting in the audience can reply. So Einstein got up and replied, so I'll speak, but if you have any questions, you can please turn to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad and ask him all the questions. So we've had this very formidable presentation by Nandan, who's India's biggest intellectual genius and really has created this unique public infrastructure for government. India is the only country which has this kind of unique public infrastructure anywhere in the world. It's difficult to make a presentation, but not merely because I was going to speak after Mr. Nandan Nilekani, but many years back when I was in the tourism sector, after my experience in Government of India, I stopped making presentations because Mr. Jagmohan was my tourism minister. He took me to this tourism ministers, I just joined, I'd moved from Kerala, I just joined. He said, Beta, tum chalo mere saath. So I was young joint secretary. I accompanied him to the Chief Minister's conference. Mr. Vajpayee, in Vigyan Bhavan, the Prime Minister sits on top, Chief Minister sit below. They speak one by one. So it was my first experience of a Prime Minister addressing Chief Ministers in this conference. So they start alphabetically, A, B, C, D. So first came Andhra, Chandrababu Naidu spoke. B, Bihar, Lalu Prasad Yadav started speaking. And he spoke one para, two paras. He was starting his third para, then suddenly from one corner, Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav got up and said, sir, point of order, point of order. So Mr. Vajpayee said, Mulayam ji, ये तो parliament नहीं है, यहाँ तो point of order नहीं होता है. So आप बैठ जाइए. So he sat down and then Lalu Yadav read his next para and again he said, sir, point of order, point of order. So he said, क्या बात है, आप क्यों disturb कर रहे हैं? He said, नहीं साहब, ये तो मेरी speech पढ़ते चले जा रहे हैं, मैं क्या पढ़ूंगा जब मेरा time है? So after that, I said, no more prepared. So when Dhruv asked me for my presentation, I said, no more presentations. But it's been such a wonderful experience seeing this lovely presentation. Almost about a decade and a half back, I was secretary, tourism, and I was working in the fisheries sector. I was also in charge of fisheries, and I was working in the fisheries sector. And one of the key challenges then was, the fish goes through about 13 to 14 middlemen in Kerala. And the challenge was that we are able to do beach level auctions, and we able to get a higher return to the traditional fishermen. And, in many cases, fisher women used to carry their fish to the city in Trivandrum. And one of the challenges then was that we were giving traditional crafts we were changing their technology, and one of the challenges was to give them fiberglass crafts, give them fishing nets, enable them to go much further into the sea outboard motors. So we all financed that. But for repayment, we said there must be a bank account and we should see that because, fishermen are quite prone to drinking. So we said 60% of their daily return must get back into their bank account for repayment, and 40% should go for their day-to-day existence. And it was such a struggle for me to open bank accounts. I tell you, it took me 10 to 11 months to open bank accounts for fishermen and fisherwomen. Because we had started this bus service, because in the normal buses, they could not travel, fisherwomen. So we created a special bus where they could keep their baskets at the back and sit in front, because normal buses, they were not being allowed. And today, about 20 odd buses run for fisherwomen, but we had to open bank accounts, and it was such a nightmare, such a nightmare. And we had to ring up chairman, go and work with, at all levels, come to Delhi, talk to the banking secretary, all kind of things. Just about a couple of months back, I walked into this Onam Day celebration of Federal Bank. I'm from Kerala cadre, so they'd invited me, I walked in. And Federal Bank opened my account using my thumb impression in 55 seconds flat. 55 seconds flat. So imagine from 11 months to 55 seconds flat. That is the paradigm shift of what Nandan has done actually. He's created an infrastructure which enables you to do this. When UPI was started, that particular month of October, they were doing 100,000, when we were pushing for it, they were doing 100,000 transactions. And December next year, they were doing 145 million. 145 million. Actually, I just did my first WhatsApp transaction for payment 2 days back. And it is such a seamless transaction because, not merely because of the UDI, but because we've created the unified payment interface at the back is so smooth. And therefore, unlike China, where your data is owned by Alibaba, Baidu, and unlike Google and Facebook in the United States, what distinguishes India from the rest of the world is that we've been able to create this unique Aadhaar infrastructure, create the India stack, and create the unified payment interface at the back, which is all government-led. And on the back of that, on the back of this public infrastructure, you have almost 1,000 fintech companies innovating on a regular basis. And therefore, you have Google Tej, you have Facebook, you have WhatsApp, all coming into, or Samsung Pay, all of them innovating. So as to enable, Google Tej is an innovation for the Indian market. WhatsApp has innovated for the Indian market, its payment mechanism, which will now take it to the rest of the world. So, because of this backend which has been created, and it's a phenomenal backend which has been created, that you are able to do all these innovations in India, which will enable these innovations to be carried for the rest of the world. And that, to my mind, is the real challenge, that when you go to Silicon Valley, you realize you have all the greatest innovators of the world. You have all these great companies. You have someone doing driverless cars. You have someone trying to put spaceship, Falcon, Elon Musk trying to do this, Google trying to do driverless cars. But these are not the challenges which are important for humanity. The challenge is, how do we provide water which is fluoride and arsenic free? The challenge is, how do we provide seed and fertilizer to our farmers to be able to enable them to get enhanced productivity? All this on a real-time basis based on weather and soil conditions so that productivity goes up. Or how do we we take 4.5 years to do a flyover. How do we do it in 40 days, which is technically feasible? Or how do we make India blackout free? Or how do we leapfrog in a manner that 11 of the most polluting cities out of the 20 in the world, which are in India, can be cleaned up? I mean, these are the challenges. And while Silicon Valley has the greatest number of innovators, it has the least number of problems. There are no problems there. I mean, they're working without any problems. They keep innovating without any challenges. Whereas in India, you have all the challenges of the world. And therefore, you need all the innovations of the world in India. And if Indians and Indian startups can find solutions for the problems of India, which is water, which is cleaning up your cities, converting sewage into energy, doing many of these social innovations, you are actually not finding solution for the 1 billion people of India, but you will be finding solution for the 7 billion people of the world. And that, to my mind, is really the key challenge for India. And I think, to my mind, it's very important that we do it to size and scale, and we do disruption of a kind which the world has never seen before. And it's possible to do this because, one, India has demographics. 72% of our population is below the age of 32. Secondly, I think this government is quite determined to make India easy and simple. Over the years, we've made India very complex. We've made India very difficult. We've made India very complicated to do business in. But this government has scrapped 1,200 laws. It has, you can register a company in one day. It has pushed for Aadhaar, which was actually Nandan had created in the previous government, but it's belief of the Prime Minister that this is the way India must go, so he's driven it on the front foot. He believes in the startup movement. He believes in several of these things. So today, we've created the bankruptcy code. You can fail and exit and so on. So the will of the government to make India easy and simple, and we've jumped 42 positions in the ease of doing business, all that is there. And I think, thirdly, we are in an era, as Nandan said, we'll be throwing up so much of data. I mean, the phenomenal use of data. I mean, the mobile data consumption of India today, and largely thanks to disruption in the telecom industry, where the cost of mobile telephony has fallen so radically that India is consuming more mobile data than China and United States put together. It's unbelievable, but India's mobile data consumption, according to TRAI's latest statistics, is more than what China and America does together. And therefore, you're going to have so much of data and data analytics and artificial intelligence and deep learning. All this will enable you to analyze and find solutions to your problem in a much quicker, much faster manner. And therefore, this is a unique opportunity. This is a unique opportunity for India. And this is a unique opportunity to disrupt. And one of the things we are trying to do, and I think the important thing is that in our education system, we've grown up with an Anglo-Saxon system of education where book learning, examination, passing out, all that is very critical. But one of the things we are trying to do is to disrupt this. In the last 1.5 years, we've opened 2,400 tinkering labs in schools, the Atal Innovation Mission. So we provided robots, 3D printers, Internet of Things. All this has been provided to students from class 6 onwards. Class 6 onwards, so that they disrupt India in a manner which the world has never seen before. And our objective is that in the next 3 years, we should be supporting 30,000 tinkering labs in schools across India. 30,000 tinkering labs cut across India so that students move away and start innovating. And we are able to develop the innovative mindset from class 6 onwards till class 12, and those who want to innovate can move out. And secondly, we are supporting a vast number of incubation centers across India. So we've supported, last year we supported 16, this year we're going to support about 30 incubation centers linked to education institutes, private institutes, and so on through a challenge route. And our objective is that we should allow a lot of students in our education systems, in our IITs, IIMs, to play around in these incubation centers and to come up with innovative products. And the third thing we are doing is to throw up huge challenges for India, huge challenges for the rest of the world to find solutions to the problems of India. I mean, in terms of water, in terms of electricity, in terms of waste, and you will see a lot of these grand challenges unfolding before you in a short while, so that the rest of the world can find solutions to the problems of India. These are very exciting days, because one of the key things that has been done is that earlier parents and students were afraid of failure. You know, we've all grown up in a system where a parent or a teacher couldn't afford to see a child failing, but failure is a very inherent part of a startup movement. And therefore, one of the key things we did when we came out with the startup policy in 2015, in August 2015, which the Prime Minister announced, many things we did. We did a fund of funds of 10,000 crores, out of which 2,680 crores has been released. We said there will be no capital gain tax for 3 years. We said there will be no tax for 3 years, and so on. Many things we did. But one of the things we said was that there will be a fund of funds. We said there will be a bankruptcy law, so that there'll be a very quick and fast exit for young startups. And I think one of the things about startup movement is that you should not be afraid to exit. Failure is a very inherent part, and Indians must start respecting that failure. There's nobody in the world who has not failed. First time you failed, second time you failed, but third time you'll definitely succeed. But we should create an ecosystem which will enable you to move out of the system. And therefore, on the back of this phenomenal infrastructure that has been built up, both Aadhaar and UPI, you have the India stack. Nandan talked about it at great length. And you have about 1,000 financial technology companies innovating. And you have some very unique innovations going on, and you'll see a huge amount of disruption. And government's job of people like me is to facilitate and catalyze this change and to ensure that all of you succeed. And while we have about close to 4,500 technology startups in India, my view is that in the next 5 years, you'll have more than 25,000 startups, and these will drive the movement forward. We, on government part, would like to accelerate this change. We, on government part, would like to provide greater impetus to this change. And we would like to give it a huge, huge push so that this startup movement, because eventually, as an American study by a guy called Kaufman said, jobs are not created by large companies. They are created by young companies. And if India's challenge is to grow with jobs, these jobs will come from young startups, they'll come from MSMEs. And that's why, along with the big impetus to the startup movement, we've tried to provide these Mudra loans without any collaterals so that we can create young entrepreneurs. And a vast number of these Mudra loans, 76% of them have been taken by women entrepreneurs. And it's important to understand that in India, it's very difficult to grow at 9 to 10% per annum. We are growing at about 7% plus, but the challenge is to grow at even higher rates of 9 to 10% over a 3-decade period. Year after year, for 3 decades or more. This is what was done by Japan, this was done later by Korea, this was done by China. India has done that, but done it for a short period. But if you want to grow at those rates consistently over a long period, women entrepreneurs have to play a very key role. In India, women account for just 20% of our GDP. Just 20%. The challenge is to take it to close to the global average, which is about 44%. And unless and until we are able to do this, it'll be very difficult. Whatever you may try, it'll be impossible for India to raise its rate of growth. And therefore, you need to create many, many women entrepreneurs in India. Many startups have to be driven by women. And one of the delightful things about the Mudra loan has been that 76% of the loans have flowed to women entrepreneurs. And when you combine that with the self-help group movement, which has taken place, it's a very remarkable thing. I'd like to just say two things, that two areas where major disruption is required, huge disruption is required, is in the area of education. Because while India has been able to provide education to all, we've been able to provide access of education, the quality of learning has really fallen in India. 44% of the students in class 5 are not able to read class 2 English. Read or write class 2 English, and 25% of the students are not able to read or write their mother tongue. And class 5 students are not able to do, almost about 38% of the class 5 students are not able to do addition, subtraction, simple addition, subtraction in class 5. And therefore, we've examined this whole area, and our view is that there is absentia of teachers, teaching is not fun, there are a lot of vacancies of teachers across the eastern part of India. But one of the key challenges is how do we use technology to leapfrog in this area of education, and how do we improve the quality of learning in these areas. And the challenge to my mind lies in 7 states of India. It lies in about 200 districts of India, and I'll come to that. The second key challenge lies in the field of health and nutrition, which to my mind is again because 8 crore people in India go below the poverty line because we are, their out-of-pocket expenses for tertiary care is very high. We've just brought out, we strongly believe in ranking states. So on ease of doing business, I started with this and we ranked states. The first year we did this, Gujarat came number 1. But the very next year, Telangana and Andhra beat them. This year we've done it on health. And next month we'll announce the ranking on education. And by June we'll do the ranking of all the district hospitals across India. But one of the things that comes out is that, again, on health, I think a huge amount of work has to be done, and the only way to make a difference is by startups. And I want to take this third issue of enhancing farmers' productivity, doubling their incomes. In the morning today, I interacted with a vast number of agricultural startups in Bangalore, and I was pleasantly surprised by the extent of technology they've used, bringing farmers produce, giving them a higher return, monitoring it, analyzing it, doing data analytics, using artificial intelligence, some of them using drones, and it's remarkable to see the work that they've done. And one of the key things I've decided is that we are working on 115 aspirational, 115 backward districts of India. And let me tell you, India can never grow till we don't transform these 115 districts which are keeping India backwards. So one of the challenges which the Prime Minister has given to us is transform these 115 districts, what we call as not the backward, but the aspirational districts. So we've created a baseline survey of where these districts are at present. And we are monitoring them because one of the major problems is that we keep working on 2011 data, the socioeconomic data of 2011. And that is all irrelevant. So we've created a baseline survey of where we are, and we are capturing data on a real-time basis of how change is taking place. Minute to minute, we'll capture. And we'll rank these districts on a real-time basis on how they're on a portal, on how they're going up and down every day. So that every collector, every MLA must know whether his district is going up or going down. And we are ranking them on 100 marks, out of which 30 marks are for education, 30 marks are for health, another 30 marks for agriculture, and 10 marks for infrastructure and skill. 5 marks for skill and 5 marks for infrastructure. So 100 marks we are ranking them, which are going up and down. And my belief is that in many of these, we are working with several agencies. We are working with Piramal Trust on education health. We are working with ITC on agriculture. We are working with several agencies to do this transformation. And my belief is that in several of these areas, it will not be possible to make a breakthrough till we are not able to bring the passion and energy of young startups in this whole movement, until we are not able to handhold them to bring the change in India. And number two is to ensure that we are able to use technology to leapfrog. In the normal manner, it will take us 2 decades, but we need technology to leapfrog in many of these areas. Education, health, agriculture, all these are areas which are dying out for disruption. And these 115 districts really provide you the playing ground for causing that disruption. So when somebody asks me, what do you imagine for tomorrow? I envisage an India where the quality of learning is radically improved. I envisage an India where our citizens are able to get fluoride and arsenic-free water. I envisage an India where the out-of-pocket expenses of patients has been removed, and we are able to improve the primary health care at the grassroots level. And that is why this particular budget, we've laid a huge emphasis on creating 1.5 lakhs primary healthcare centers, and gone for a major tertiary assurance scheme so that everybody is taken care of as far as health is concerned. And thirdly, enhancing production and productivity in agriculture. And all this is feasible, and these are the areas where disruption is required. These are the areas where innovation is required. These are the areas where great amount of passion, energy, dynamism of all our startup movement is required. And to my mind, this is the imaginable India. Providing quality education, providing quality water, providing basic primary health care for its citizens. And unless and until we are able to do this, it's not possible for India to grow at 9 to 10% over a long period of time. And this is where we need young startups to disrupt. And on our part in government, we'll provide you all the assistance, all the support, and act as the facilitator and catalyst. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.